topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. It's Tuesday, and I'm so thrilled to be here with you. And I want to thank each and every one of you for watching our show, because I have some really, really great news. So what I was doing was I was just searching for something in ChatGPT, so which is like a large language learning model, like Gemini, Claude, or Anthropic, as you might know, or Copilot. And what happened was 2 times I look for some toxic boss, and I look for something else, and our show popped up, and it is all because of your love. Because yes, we were in the top 10% worldwide, but now because of your viewership, because of your listening, we are showing up organically, just being who we are. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching our show with all my heart, and just wanted to share this good news with you that now we are showing up in the AI model as well, and to let you know that organic does work. So keep watching, keep sharing, because you don't know whose life you might be changing. So thank you again, and let's bring in our guest today.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, welcome, Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here. So excited. I was really excited about joining you today. So I'm really interested in getting into some good conversation.
Absolutely. So tell us, we usually start out from either childhood or youth. If you have a moment or a positive person who left a remarkable impression on you, and that left you like all energized or like something positive.
That's a really interesting question. Ideally, there have been several people that have made that kind of impression. But the first person that really made the greatest impression on me probably was my own mother. Seeing her as a single mom, I come from a 2-parent household, but my parents are divorced, and seeing my mother thrive and conquer milestone after milestone with her own education, her career, and then being able to give me the life that my peers had from a 2-parent household, it was inspirational. And it really empowered me for all that women can do. So that was my groundwork.
Oh, that is fantastic. So as you grew up, when did your interest take you?
I am a person, and that's a real funny question that people often laugh, because I'm a person that has worn numerous hats. I've owned 5 brick and mortar businesses. I have moved through and evolved through different career paths, where I was started out my early career. I'm wicked smart in the sciences, and I was going to go down the pathway of being a pharmacist. And ideally, I think all of that has led me to coaching, because in my earliest career journeys, the one constant, the one consistency was that no matter what I touched, I was gifted at being able to coach and train others. And it became synonymous with no matter where I worked, no matter which Fortune 500 company I was working with or working for, or no matter what business I started, it all roads always led back to coaching and training. And so it became a constant. It became more of my zone of genius. And it's where, I feel the most fulfilled.
Mm. So, out of all of your corporate jobs, which one would you say you enjoyed the most? Or that kind of like, it was some challenging, any experiences from there that you still carry with you?
Wow. I have really had an amazing career journey in corporate. But there were two companies that really hit home for me. The first one is that when I decided I didn't want to do pharmacy and it wasn't my jam, like many people, if you're not going to become a clinician of some sort, you wind up likely in some healthcare field. I was no different. And so I evolved and wound up at Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceuticals. I was there for almost 11 years. And the work and the environment as a hospital specialist, which is what I was during that time in training, was so powerful for me because it allowed me to really hone in on the core of, once again, helping others, understanding what their real problems were and providing solutions that could help them get to a better place in their lives, in their healthcare journey. And so that was really, really powerful. It was when the early juices of my innovation and mindset came to fold as I, stepped into the environments of winning standards of leadership and all kinds of other accolades. All those things were great, but they still didn't have the same impact that I had when I knew that I helped a family or I saw somebody's life change or someone's child really make a difference from the medication that they had tried based upon the recommendation I was making to the physician. So I really, really love that. And I'd say if I had to pick a second, I worked for Walters Kluwer designing med school curriculum. And I absolutely love that because it allowed me, even though I don't want to be a pharmacist, that passion is always there on the healthcare side, and being able to lean in with some of the world's top clinicians, authors, editors in the healthcare space, designing that M1, M2 curriculum. I love that. And it was a wonderful place for me to meet some amazing people that I still hold near and dear to me today.
Fantastic. So what would you say were a couple of challenges that you faced in those careers?
I think it wasn't necessarily that I had a challenge in the career. It was more around having a challenge within my inner self, knowing that, what, I love this and I can do this and I'm good at it. I'm great at it. But there was something that was always in me, that entrepreneur bug was always there. I think that's why I always rocked the 9 to 5 and the 5 to 9. I was always doing both. I think that inner turmoil of knowing that I wanted to be my own boss, and beyond being my own boss, because a lot of people may want to do that, I wanted to do good for the world. I wanted to do something different and more. And so that was my own inner turmoil, that's what I would say.
And how did you deal with it?
It was a struggle bus. I'll be honest, for almost 2 decades, I spent, working in corporate, grappling with the idea of, is this something I should do full time? And for many, it probably looked like, God, she's always into something. She's always doing something. She's starting a different business. She's working at a different company. She's always doing something. And I had tenure. But what I learned and how I dealt with it is where I stand today. Most times when I'm coaching, people are always taken back around the breadth of knowledge that I have around so many diverse experiences, whether it's entrepreneurship, healthcare, retail, food services. And they're like, how do you know so much about so many different avenues? It came from me dabbling in all these arenas early on in my career, finding myself, which is like many of our, listeners. We're all finding ourselves. And so that depth of wisdom and knowledge that I spent throughout decades of my career journey led me to a space where I feel somewhat of a subject matter expert in some distinctive area. So it was a good thing.
Definitely. So let's jump into it and share with our audience, like, the value that they can take away from our conversation. So there's so many people, right? Like they are thinking, oh, I just want to be an individual contributor? And I know you've worked with executives as well.
Yes.
So there's some hesitation, like sometimes, especially, a lot of women and men, like, when they're in the tech, they have the options of just kind of being a tech leader, which is still, let's say somebody's a software engineer, they just kind of go directly in that path, or it can go in the people management.
Hmm.
So sometimes that question lingers. What would you tell them?
I would say dive in. If you think that it's something that your heart has passion for and you're good at it, dive in, because that exposure and that experience may lead you to the pathway of your ultimate landing journey. So we need to dive in. We're by nature, and I always laugh when people are like, I don't want to try too many different things, I don't want to get off into many things. By nature, especially women, by nature, we're designed to do more than one thing and to try different things and experience different things. That's the only way that we would know if it's the right thing. And so I would say dive in.
Yeah, definitely. And yet there's that hesitation, right? What if this decision was wrong? What could they share with themselves?
Well, as any good coach would tell them, I just saw a quote, I think that Denzel Washington just posted last week, and it talked about the essence of the trials, the tribulations, the issues that we experience are actually the gifts, because they're the things that teach us about how our path forward should be, how it teaches us about resilience, it teaches us about the appreciation for the good things in our life when we experience adversity. So I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what are some of the factors people can know that they're ready for a promotion?
That's a
Or what can they implement so that they can go and advocate for themselves?
That's a wonderful question. As I think about what I would tell someone that is interested in a promotion, is to think about, you know, where am I really valued most? And then speak to your own leadership, your peers and partners that collaborate and work with you. Do they see you as you see yourself? Oftentimes, people are always saying, hey, I want more money, I want to get promoted. And maybe, just maybe, you're not ready. And so we have to reaffirm for ourselves, not that we are the only ones that think that, giving ourselves that attaboy, but that others see our work as value added. And if you ask the right questions and you're getting the feedback time and time again, pretty consistent, you can best guess that I'm probably ready. And if you are ready, then, I'm always a strong proponent of rich feedback. So we don't wait until we're ready to get promoted to ask the hard questions or to carve out our pathway. It's consistent. It's routine. So we're making people aware of what our needs, our desires, and our hopes and dreams and what we want out of life and our career paths. And we're routine with it. And then we carve out the pathway to get there alongside. So
Yeah. And one of the key things so many times happens is, like, since we're on the topic of tech, let's kind of stick with it.
Yeah.
That, well, it so happens sometimes, like in the tech world, or even if it's, there are certain careers where you still don't find as many women. And so in those careers, like, one of my client was an accountant. Some of them are in like a very, very high tech area, or lawyers. And they'll come and say, I'm the only one in the room as a woman. And all these men don't get me. And
yeah.
and so many times what happens is that they do miss the camaraderie of having other women. What are some of the things, especially, as you're getting promoted and you are seeing that this is an option? How can women step into their discomfort and
Hmm.
just lean into it
Yeah.
and
So,
part
are
of
we,
it rather than considering themselves as 1% out of it.
are we still talking tech?
Yes.
All right. So, in the tech space in particular, the one thing that we have going for us as women is that we've made many, many great innovations and developments in this space. We are early adopters to this space. We're the ones, the risk takers in this space. And so we're not as far back as one might think as it clones to tech in general, especially when it comes to AI and some of the other new developments that are happening. But I would say that if you are an individual that you feel like you're the lonely only, and you're a person that is in this space and you haven't seen the enlightenment and the opportunities come full circle, we have to think about how we are articulating our value. And I think that's the first thing. You know, people can't trust who they don't know. They can't engage what they can't see. They can't believe in where they don't see the value. And so we have to make sure that early and often we are routinely displaying our value. You know, we don't just sit quietly at the boardroom in the conference room when we have an idea or a thought or value to add to the table, especially when it comes to technology and AI and innovation. We need to speak up. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Let's say if we were to now take it into just generic area, like it so happens that sometimes, like you said, I really love what you said, the lonely only in the room. So based on what you're telling, what I'm hearing is that when you share value, you are going to be building influence, because influence is not waiting till the end of the year, thinking ahead of time
Yeah.
and being strategic about it. So what are your some of the favorite strategies that your clients have seen success with?
Yeah, I think that not only articulating value, but displaying it as well, right? I mean, we could say all day long that, hey, I'm valuable, like I did a good job. But the reality is that I've got to
Yeah.
see it to believe it. So displaying it and articulating the value. My biggest thing with clients, you know, I'm a proponent. I wrote an article this past year in Forbes around intrinsic value, and being able to talk to our audience about and our clients and our peers, partners, and our families about how we amplify our work. You know, whether we're displaying it, articulating it, you know, that's the first place that I focus. Owning your own intrinsic value, because at the end of the day, you can work for an amazing company, have dynamic ideas, and you really can be valuable, but still be overlooked. And
Mm,
so when you know your intrinsic value, and when I try to encourage my clients to see and own it, you don't stay in environments where they don't serve you. You don't stay in environments where they can't see you or they don't witness or acknowledge your greatness. And so that's the first thing. Own your own intrinsic value so that it becomes that guiding compass that directs your career, your life, your leadership, and beyond.
mhm. That's a very powerful point, that own your intrinsic value. Because
Yes,
here's the thing, if you don't see the value that you're bringing, it is hard to advocate for yourself and influence others to see that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
It becomes a struggle bus for so many. And it is the one finite thing that no matter whether I'm coaching a C-suite executive or early career professional, it's hard to own that. And even if they believe in their own intrinsic value, somewhere along the line, there is some saboteur, you know, that comes in and makes us rethink routine and lose sight of the vision that got us here. So it's really important.
Absolutely. That is so powerful. And so now we have talked about people who are already in their jobs, but so many times what happens is that people are being laid off. And unfortunately, a lot of people have been laid off during this time. So, and the market is tough.
Yeah.
What are some of the like key things that you would share with them for the job search and getting back in the job market?
Yeah. There's a multiplex of things that I think should and could be done, but none of them, and I repeat, none of them are done in this moment where we are now. Um, our lives are about staying ready. And that means, I'm famous for saying that no American should be without a residual source of income. I think it's really, really important. And what that looks like in a corporate setting may look different. Obviously, if you are the chief executive officer at a company, it may be challenging for you to have a 5 to 9. I'm not saying it in that context. Maybe it means that you're selling one powerful piece of real estate each year on the side that becomes your residual. Maybe it's you're consulting or advocating in some way outside of the workspace that's in a non-compete competitive way. Maybe and making sure that your employers are okay with that, being transparent up front when you first take the job. But the key here is to stay ready, own your skill sets, be mindfully aware of where there's gray matter now. I do a self-assessment annually, at least twice a year, where I'm looking at everything that's going on in the world. What don't I know? Where am I
Yeah.
not wicked smart? Where am I missing some of the puzzle pieces? And
Yeah.
when I get there, that's where I spend my investment in myself. I invest in those opportunities to learn and grow. That's what brought me to the space of many of my clients and myself owning this space of AI. I was an early adopter to it because I knew, I don't know, what is this? How is this? Where is this? And I made myself immersed in it so that I could really speak confidently about the decisions that I wanted to make. And that's what I encourage anyone that's listening to do, is that own your gray matter. Own it, know it, and make that where you make the greatest investment in your life for professional development. Stay ready. Have a residual source, because it's not when these times are going to come, or if, it's when, right? And so we have to be prepared for it no matter what. But as it relates to job search, the one thing that I'm always tickled about, is when I'm working with clients and I'm thinking and I'm asking them, I said, what percentage of your LinkedIn are people that are in your industry? And they're like, oh, about 80, 90%. And I'm like, yeah, therein lies the problem. I.e. LinkedIn, it's meant for you to network beyond your comfort zone, right? To link with people that are not in your industry, that you don't know, so that when times like these present themselves, you have a vast array of networks to go to engage. Because right now, applying for a job, LinkedIn will kill me for saying it, but it's not it. You're going to have to fill out the application, C-suite or otherwise, but you still need to network, and exhaust the possibilities of networking. If you've done one thing one way, don't go back and do it tomorrow or next week if it didn't serve you. Find new ways to network, and understand the hiring patterns. What I've noticed, Divya, is a lot of people as of late have been really disappointed about the amount of no's that they're receiving. It's disappointing at all levels, and these are amazingly smart individuals. But the reality of it is, when we don't understand the hiring patterns and the seasons for opportunities, sometimes we, get lost in the storm. It's fourth quarter. Sure, there's some jobs out there, but they're not plentiful, right? So we have to be mindful that, we normally see a little bit of a hiring freeze in the fourth quarter and be ramped up for Q1. So just some of the little tips about understanding, knowing, networking, and having residual kind of put you in a sweet spot so that you're not as distressed when, a forced pause happens.
Mm. I really like what you mentioned about being ready, because as the trends we have seen, right? Because like beforehand, people would join a job and they would retire, they would get the pension, but those times have changed.
Mhm.
So from there, we went into full-time employees. From there, now we are getting into gig economy, where a lot of companies don't want to hire regular employees
Yeah.
versus them going for 1099s and Surprisingly, as a matter of fact, today one of my clients in the morning was sharing that she does real estate. She is also a content influencer.
Yeah.
And while she is a data scientist, and of course, she's Gen Z self starter, and she's like, I don't want to be in that place. So
Yeah.
it's such a perfect comparison to what you're recommending, that it's important. It's important to be ready. And she's like, oh, yeah, if I were to get laid off, I know that I'm not going to be as distressed as if I did not have anything. So you mentioned another important point about knowing the trends. So share with us usually what are the hiring trends?
So, in general, by and large, Q1, we see a ramp up, right? Everybody's got their budget approved, vendor contracts are happening, consultancies are happening, people are bringing on new hires. And so that's Q1. Maybe around Q2, we see some still subtle hiring, but there's still somewhat of a lull. The only industries historically that I've seen that really haven't adhered to that have been retail, hospitality, and healthcare, right? Because they've got some constants with seasonality and they're consistent pretty much. So they're always seasonally going to have something going on because of the nature of the beast, right? We travel, we shop seasonally, habits. Then we roll into September, late August, September, maybe even the first week or so of October, where you see people ramp up hiring again because they know that if I haven't spent my budget in September, I'm not going to get it again next year. So you see some hiring happening or some spend happening, if you're a consultant, 1099 or such. And then, like I said, Q4, we roll into this space where hiring freezes are happening. Again, this doesn't mean that there aren't any jobs out there, because please believe I see jobs every day, but they aren't as plentiful as we likely usually see in Q1. But we're in a new time. We've got a new sheriff in town, and we've got things happening very differently across the United States. And so even this pattern may not feel as constant or consistent or stable as what we're used to. And so it leans us back to what I said earlier, staying ready. Be aware.
Stay ready and look for the patterns, be aware what's going on.
Absolutely.
So these are very, very relevant and helpful points. Now, let's say, somebody finds a job, they're doing good, they're like good settled. But so many times what happens is that I'll get clients who'll come to me and say that, yeah, I'm feeling good pay scale. They may even have a partner who's making good money, but they're like, I lack fulfillment. I'm not getting that joy and I'm experiencing that burnout. Have you also experienced that? And what are some of the tips you would share with them?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you spot on. We're right in alignment there. Reality is that my clients that make the most money oftentimes are the least fulfilled. And I think that there is part for the course around that because they've lost sight of the joy that brought them to the role. They've lost sight, heavy is the hat that wears the crown. When you're in those positions and high profile, roles and careers, it taxes us. It takes a lot out of us to really manage and lead an organization and inspire and motivate our peers and our teams and just, really be transformative in nature. That's hard to always be on. And what that does is it takes us away from our family. We have very little time for self, and so our healthcare may suffer a little bit. And we really just don't have the time to just decompress and relax. Because we all know that in any career pathway, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're the receptionist answering the phone or you're the C-suite person running a company, we all need to reset, restore, and renew. And when we don't have that time, it creates a space where there's distress and stress around us. So my one infinite word of wisdom is to block time for self at any level of your career. It's invaluable because it gives you back the essence of who you are, why you're there, and it allows you to think clearly about why I want to stay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely the thing that people need to do.
Yeah.
Because the question is, if not now, then when?
Then when? Yeah, absolutely.
So, what different types of executive challenges your clients have faced?
Oh, wow. I think the biggest challenge that I've seen right now um, has been career elevation
Mhm.
and the ability for people to be heard in the workspace. It's a space, it's a very uncomfortable space that we're in right now, because being heard could be around a multiplex of things. It could be around culture, community, gender equality. It could be sustainability. It could be so many different things, but there's a fear factor of, do I say anything? Do I put myself at risk? Am I the loudest voice in the room? Are they going to look at me indifferent? Do I have any allies? It's so being able to speak with confidence and clarity has been a huge barrier for most. And even when my clients don't know that that's their problem, I know it's their problem, right?
Yeah.
And so that clarity code is what I coach around, is so important. The other thing is, there is again, going back to this, there's a ongoing issue of, am I being paid for my worth? Am I being compensated for my work? So right now, companies are getting leaner. We're seeing ourselves doing way more work than we signed up for, way more work than maybe the job description. If I'm a 1099 and I'm a fractional, I'm doing, my job and somebody else's as well. And it's like, did I sign up for this? And am I being fairly compensated for this? And I would say this, if it wasn't here before and it's here now, you may want to just try to navigate and weather the storm, because opportunities are a little bit scarce. There's a lot of amazing people in the job market right now. And if you have a job, I encourage you to keep it right now. And that's one piece of the puzzle. But being able to, again, all roads leading back to communication, being able to have that honest, rich level of communication to share with the leader or a thought partner or whomever, that this looks and feels different than what I signed on for, or I'm totally in to put in the work. Let's talk about what this may look like for future compensation increase, and things of that nature. But we're afraid to have the conversations. And if you're afraid to have the conversations, then you should, not even complain. You've got to be
Yeah.
ready to have the conversation.
That's such a great point, because recently I was having a conversation with one of my clients where she said that I've only been with the company for like 10, was it? I think so, like 18 months or something like that.
Mhm.
And she was doing sort of, without like, divulging the client confidentiality, in their company, the philosophy was that your work roster needs to be filled up with 75-80%, and you have room more for to grow. And she had 130%. So we were having this conversation like, I want a promotion. I'm like, listen, like you said, the jobs are scarce. I said, go ahead and let's brainstorm and like co-create a plan where you are checking, like, how long does it take for the promotional cycle in your company? If the promotion happens, what's the compensation? So this way, when you get it, you're not in for a disappointment, because it's important to have that dash of reality. Like you said, like, jobs are scarce, live out the storm.
Yeah.
So we kind of worked through it, and she did get a title, but the compensation was not as much. So she came back very disappointed. And then we said, like, okay, I said, why don't we go back to our conversation 3 months back when we were planning for your promotion? She went back, looked at her notes, and said, oh, yeah, So as we were exploring, I said, okay, what's the silver lining here? She's like, oh, I can take this experience, have it on my resume, and go somewhere else for my compensation.
Yeah.
So based on what you're sharing, it's the awareness and the perspective that we bring to the situation can change so much differently. So when people, so many times they have a toxic boss. For somebody in that situation, what would you what would you tell them, and how would you partner with them to help them move through that toxic journey?
Yeah. Well, one, have the conversation, because toxicity will take over. Sometimes that leader doesn't even realize that they're the toxic source. So, as best you can, without burning any bridges, still have the conversation. But I think that we need to remind ourselves of this, is that remind yourself about why you fell in love with the work. Because no matter what job you hold, no matter what company you work for, no matter what compensation or title that you have, if the work no longer soothes you, you won't
Yeah.
be happy there, no matter what salary. And so it's important that we fall in love with the work we're doing and do the best work. And because leaders come and go, we could have an amazing job, an amazing leader. And you and I have both seen it, right? Person gets this new job. They're, oh my God, this is so amazing. I love this career. And then the tides change, the boss retires, the boss leaves, the boss gets let go. And now everything feels just a little bit different. But when
Yeah.
we remind ourselves why we're there, fall in love with the work, not your boss, not your company, but fall in love with the work. If the work still meets your needs and your goals, then you go to work, you show up, you do great work, you fall in love with the work, and you let it go. And you
Yeah.
find fulfillment externally from the workplace. If you're no longer in love with the work and it's in tandem with a toxic boss, then you need to contact you or I about the opportunity for coaching so we can get you another opportunity.
Absolutely. Some powerful things there. So we're kind of coming to the end of the show. So, what are some of the other things that are on your heart that you'd love to share with our audience?
I think right now for me, what's on my heart and my mind is for anyone that is seeking career, life, and leadership fulfillment, is to remind themselves of where their zone of genius is. Where do you show up with minimal effort and lean into those things? That's where you're going to find the happiest levels of fulfillment. If it's where you're working, great. If it's someplace else, great. Go after it. Give yourself options, because life is about options. And that means, maybe rocking that 9 to 5 and that 5 to 9, or finding some other residual sources of income, and maintain these several people in your life. I believe every human should have a sponsor, a mentor, what I call a growth friend, a coach, and for God's sake, a therapist. I think that vital individuals in a life trajectory, somewhere along the lines. You don't necessarily need the therapist all the time, but maybe have them on speed dial for when you do. Have these people in your life, because what I have found is that the people that are the most successful, the most fulfilled, they have that village, and they're external to their family and friends.
Mhm.
And that village empowers you to do so many things and to achieve and conquer and have a plan for resistance, because guess what? We always need one. You'll always,
Oh, absolutely. So powerful.
yeah.
So, Jackie, I'm sure that listeners will be thinking, okay, how can we contact Jackie? So, tell us, where can you be reached?
Yeah.
Tell us about your services.
Yep. So I am leaning into the art of essentialism, and my ecosystem does two things pretty powerfully. I do one-on-one executive coaching, and I also do what I like to call keynotes with clients. And that's where I have some very succinct, specialized areas where I come out and do an experiential kind of keynote with application attached to it. All of that can be found at www.thecareerdoctorllc.com. I'm also leaning into AI like every other good person out here that's trying to fill that gray matter. And if you want to know more about my particular AI and how it's helping people amplify their communication strategy, you lean on over to www.engagexai.io.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure.
Same here. I absolutely loved it. And invite me back anytime. I had a great time today.
Absolutely. And thank you, wonderful audience, for joining us and for watching our shows and helping us help other people. So I know that I'm totally grateful to you, and share it out. Share with other people, because you never know. These conversations can make a difference in one of your loved ones or one of your friends' lives. So be sure to share it out. And thank you, Juan, for making the show technically possible. So be well, take care, and I'll see you all next time.
See you next.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.